Thank you all for tuning in to WJT 98.3 FM, your voice, music, your station. My name is Jeff Badu, and I'm a licensed certified public accountant. I'm the CEO and founder of Badu Enterprises, which is a multinational conglomerate in the finance industry. And what we do is we specialize in a suite of financial services, including tax preparation, financial consulting, credit repair, life insurance, and services of that nature. Today we'll have a very brief discussion on how to win scholarships. For me personally, one of the ways that I was able to fund my college education was through scholarships, so definitely want to go ahead and discuss that. I know the kids are, or the college students are back in school now. At least the majority are starting up the fall semester. And so I figured this would be a great time to touch upon the topic. Before we do that, let's go ahead and go through a market report. This report is as of August 23rd, 2019. So that's as of last Friday. Stock gains enjoyed earlier last week were lost by week's end on ramped up trade war rhetoric from the White House. This is something we've seen consistently this year and even last year, where there's been some pretty consistent trade wars. So with that being said, stocks surged earlier in the week on favorable earnings reports from some major retailers and a renewed commitment from the Federal Reserve to act accordingly and heading off a possible recession. Following China's announcement that it would raise tariffs on U.S. imports, including a 25% tax on American-made autos. President Trump fired back, ordering domestic companies to start looking for alternatives to China. So basically, China and the U.S. are in a big war right now as far as trade is concerned. By last Friday, each of the benchmark indexes fell notably, led by the Russell 2000, which dropped over 2.25%. The NASDAQ, which also lost about 2%. Price of crude oil went down $54.94 per barrel to $53.89 per barrel. Price of COMEX gold went up $15.2360 to $15.3720. So far this year, the Dow Jones is up 9.87%. NASDAQ is up 16.83%. NASDAQ is mainly composed of technology stocks. S&P 500, which is composed of the 500 top stocks in the U.S., essentially up 13.57%. Russell 2000 is up 8.23%. Global Dow is up 5.92%. Federal funds target rate is currently at 2 to 2.25%, due to the Federal Reserve reducing interest rates earlier this year, and is expected to continue the trend later this year, which of course excites investors and will most likely see a higher stock market towards the end of the year. So let's get into scholarships. When it comes to funding a college education, when it comes to making sure that you don't leave yourself in student loan debt, scholarships are very important to apply for. For me personally, I was able to get through college. At least when it was all said and done, I didn't leave with any student loans, thankfully. I did start off with student loans. So my freshman year, I took out some student loans because I didn't get enough scholarships to cover all of my my financial needs for freshman year. So I had to take out a few student loans, but I was able to get scholarships, and I used the scholarship money essentially to pay off the student loans when it was all said and done. So for me, scholarships are near and dear to my heart. This is something that I focus a lot on. It's what helped me get through college. So what I do now is I send out different scholarships to different students, or I put them on a website. When I was in college, I used to have an email list of people that I would just send scholarships to, maybe about at least twice a month. Even the scholarships that I was applying for, I literally sent those out to students in order for them to apply for it as well. And I'll talk about this a little bit more, but some scholarships you get grandfathered in, meaning that if you continuously apply and qualify, you will continuously win that scholarship. The key is you cannot win a scholarship unless you actually apply for one. It's very important that as you are a college student or somebody who's about to go to college, you need to apply for scholarships. It's very, very important to do so. There are essentially 4 phases of successfully winning a scholarship. So today's focus, we'll be talking about different strategies, tools, tips, and tricks you can use in order to win scholarships. First one is you have to find the scholarship. So you have to go out and do some research, and we'll talk about each of the steps in detail a little bit. Then you have to, once you find it, you have to apply for it. Then there's the waiting period, which is a very important period, and then ultimately what we all want is to win the scholarship. So let's talk about finding scholarships. First place to search is Google. Google has a lot of scholarships out there. All you have to do is Google scholarships for, let's say, your left. Even they have scholarships now for left-handed people, for example. They have scholarship for your specific major. They have scholarships for your specific school, your specific state. There's so many different scholarships, and they have different platforms that allow you to search for scholarships in general and get on some sort of email list where they send you different scholarships as they become available and as they meet your matching criteria. It's basically like, Match.com, essentially, where they're matching you with different scholarships. So search for scholarships that are in your major, your class level. So if you're a freshman, there's certain scholarships only for freshmen, certain only for sophomores or seniors, and then some of it do it by race. So there's scholarships for African Americans, scholarship for Latinos, Asian American, all that good stuff. And then anything that you can identify with, left-handed, right-handed, first generation college student, things of that nature. There's tons and tons of scholarships. As a matter of fact, most of the scholarships out there don't get applied for, which is pretty sad, actually. I mean, part of it is because some of them are hard to find, but at the same time, there is really no excuse behind doing research. I'll tell you, when I was in college, going into my freshman year, my senior year in high school, I applied for over 100 scholarships. I won about 10 of them, luckily. But I applied for over 100 scholarships as a senior in college. A senior in high school. And then my freshman year in college, I applied for about 50. And then it just kept scaling down because they start limiting you as you move up the ranks a little bit. So for me, every single week I was out applying for scholarships any chance that I could. So that's very, very important to continuously apply. They even have scholarships for juniors in high school now. So that's very important to apply for those types of scholarships. And along with this point is ask your financial aid office or financial aid coach or financial advisor, or whoever, or guidance counselor, whoever it is that guides you throughout the college process if you're not in college. And then if you are in college, you do have a guidance, you have some sort of advisor that can help you guide through the financial process of college. So you can either ask your financial aid office or you can visit the school or college's website. They usually have a list of scholarships. I remember the College of Business essentially had a website where you can apply for scholarships. I remember every winter break during the Christmas season, I would be on the website applying for as many scholarships as I could. And me personally, I'll actually be sponsoring one of the scholarships in the near future. So that's something that I plan to continue, as I plan to continue giving out scholarships in the future. I currently give out scholarships through the National Association of Black Accountants, as well as the Ghana National Council. Recently sponsored 2 scholarships this year. So there's always scholarships on the school's website. There's, anything that pertains to you, usually you can win a scholarship in that category. And remember, most people don't apply for these scholarships. So some scholarships, they might only have like 1 or 2 applications, which means you have a very high chance of winning. So that's very important. And then ask people So ask individuals such as myself. I have access to a lot of different scholarships. Ask your advisor, your counselor, mentor. Always important to find a mentor as soon as you get to college or life in general. Members of your organization. So if you're a member of NABA, National Association of Black Accountants, we have 3 scholarships, one at the national level, one at the regional level, and one at the local level. And as a matter of fact, there's a 4th level, which is at the high school level now. We even give out scholarships to high school students now through our ACAP or our ACAP program. So try to identify organizations. If you're in a fraternity, they usually have scholarships for you. Me personally, I was not in a fraternity in college, but I did win a scholarship from a fraternity, ironically. So ultimately, these people will help you find the money that it is you need. And then they also can write you letters of recommendations. It's very important that when you step foot on the college campus, identify somebody that can guide you. That person can usually help you receive letters of recommendations and things of that nature. So that's the first step. Second step is to actually apply for the scholarship. This is the most important step. Apply for as many as you can. Apply for as many scholarships as possible. I made this a part-time job for me when I was in college. I would literally spend about, let's say, 3 hours a week researching scholarships in college, seeing which ones I qualified for, asking my guidance counselors, asking my mentors, asking my coaches, everybody I could. I asked, hey, where's the money, basically? So for me, every single chance I received, I was able to apply for a scholarship. So apply for as many as you can. When it comes to scholarships, it's a numbers game, meaning the more you apply for, the higher your chances of winning. And you have nothing to lose. I mean, you might lose a few hours here and there, but as a freshman in college, your workload is not super heavy. And this is the opportunity, or even as a high school senior, this is an opportunity to build your list of scholarships. Some of these scholarships, they just continue every single year. And then once you found all the scholarships that you are even potentially qualified for, be sure to compile a list along with associated deadlines. So you would put the name of the scholarship, the deadline of the scholarship, the link to apply for it, and then you would want to have a category called status, or maybe you need recommendations. Maybe your GPA needs to be a little higher. So compile that list and put a status next to the list as well. Even if you aren't fully eligible for scholarship, still go ahead and apply for it. It might cost you a transcript fee or, things of that nature, but it's an investment at the end of the day. And a lot of these scholarships, when I was in college, they didn't require full-blown transcripts. They might have just required like a screenshot to say, hey, let me see a screenshot, unofficial transcript. Those you don't have to pay for. Official transcripts, back in the day, they used to be $8 per transcript. I don't know what they are now, but they're usually pretty inexpensive. And then, to that point, no one might even be applying for that scholarship. So it's only to your benefit if you go ahead and apply for it. You never know, you might just win it. And then be sure to complete the application in full, 100%. Don't leave any information behind. Thankfully, nowadays, a lot of these scholarships are online. They have online applications. I remember NABA, our applications used to be by paper. Now it's fully online at all 3 levels. So it avoids a lot of the mistakes. Let's say you miss something. There's usually like a flag saying, hey, you need to complete this before you move to the next page. And then submit all required materials to the correct address. Very important. Very, very, very important. And I'll touch upon this point in a second. But just be sure, if they need 3 letters of recommendations, if they need, if they need an essay, if they need a transcript, anything like that, you need to be sure to apply for it, or you need to make sure you send it in, essentially. And then get letters of recommendations that are as personal or specific to the scholarship as possible. So there are people that will write you generic letters of recommendations, but please at least ask them, hey, can you even if they just tweak the word and just to make it a little bit, just about 5 words, and say, hey, this is for the so-and-so foundation scholarship. So if you can do that, I think that would be great. It basically increases the chances of you winning the scholarship if the letter of recommendation is a little more personable to that scholarship. And then try to have your recommender send the letter directly to the scholarship organization in order to make it more convincing, to make it not seem as if you wrote the recommendation letter. But if you are going to do that, please be sure, and we'll talk about this in a waiting period or the follow-up phase, please be sure to make sure that they receive it. So we'll talk about the follow-up process. It's very important. This is where a lot of people actually miss out on scholarships, is in the follow-up phase. And then make your essay as concise and to the point as possible. You want to avoid a lot of the fluff. They don't really want to hear the fluff. the extra details. They want you to answer the question. So if they ask you, give me a time when you face a struggle in life and how did you overcome that challenge, you want to make it. They usually use the STAR method, which you talk about the situation, you talk about the task at hand, the action that you took, and then what was the result. So you want to follow that method. You really want to get straight to the point. A lot of these essays have a word limit for a reason, because they want you to get straight to the point and they want you to be able to answer. Trust me, they do not want to read a bunch of these essays that are just filled with fluff. They want to say, hey, this person got to the point, they answered the question, and this is why they deserve the scholarship. And then please also try to answer all the questions in the essay question. So don't leave anything behind. Try to go down a bullet point list. Usually these colleges have review workshops or places where you can revise essays and things of that nature, writing workshops. So try to utilize those services if you don't necessarily have the skills to write. And it's the simple things in life that really make the biggest difference. It's about not going over the word limit, getting straight to the point in your answers, making sure you have the specific amount of letters of recommendations, answering all the questions, sending the application to the right address or email address. It's very important. I want to give a quick shout out to Pakwesi Sam, who's the Ghana National Council president. He said, thank you for your sponsorship of the $500 scholarship during the during the back to school event. So we did have a back to school event a few weeks ago where we gave out school supplies and we also gave out scholarships to a few students. So definitely important to give back to the community, especially in scholarships. The reason why I focus a lot on scholarships is because that's what helped me get through college. That's what helped reduce the burden for me. So it's very important to be able to give back in that way. And if you're just tuning in, thank you all for tuning in to WJT 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station. This is the show Money Talks, where all we talk is money. If you want to ask any questions or chime in, comments, things of that nature, you can either join us live on Facebook. We're streaming live on Facebook. You can visit my page at Jeff Badu, JEFFBADU. You can also call into the studio line, 773-942-7167. Once again, 773-942-7167. So we're talking about the topic of scholarships. We mentioned that there are 4 steps to winning a scholarship. First step is to find the scholarship. Second step is to apply for the scholarship that you find. And then the third step is the waiting period, which we'll talk about now. With the waiting period, imagine if you just sent the application to the wrong address. Just imagine that instead of you sending it to 123 Main Street, you sent it to 129 Main Street. Maybe because you accidentally wrote the address wrong, or the UPS folks or USPS folks shipped it to the wrong address. And then 3 months later or 2 months later, you find out that you didn't even win the scholarship because you didn't even apply for it because they never received your application. So it's very important to have a follow-up system in place. Remember, this is the same type of things that we do in business to this day. We apply the same concept. Same thing here. We always follow up with clients. We always follow up with prospects. We always follow up. Follow-up is extremely important when it comes to running a business, when it comes to applying for scholarships, anything that you're looking to progress or has a progressive process in life. So always follow up. What I usually do, if it's a paper application, I would send in an email saying, hey, I would say about 2 weeks. If it's before the deadline, I would say about 2 weeks after sending it. Now, if you sent it around the deadline, which I don't recommend, you do want to contact them within 24 hours of the deadline. That way they have some sort of receipt to say that, hey, you actually made an effort. Because sometimes they'll extend it for you. Maybe you sent it to the wrong address, but they never received it. So first follow-up thing you want to do is you want to send them an email. You follow up 2 weeks after the scholarship if you don't hear back from them. Now, if you heard back, then that's fine. It's like, hey, we've acknowledged receipt. That's why a lot of these things are online now. If you received an online acknowledgement, that's fine. I mean, you don't have to follow up 2 weeks later. You do want to follow up. Let's say that they announced winners and they said they would email you whether you got it or not, and you haven't received the email by that date, then I would go ahead and send an email saying, hey, my name is so-and-so. I applied for this scholarship, and it was acknowledged on this date. I would like to follow up on the status of the scholarship. Sometimes they just forget to send it to you. For me, I always send follow-ups. I had a reminder. I had like a list going. This is back when I did not use my phone calendar. I used my physical calendar. So I had a reminder on certain dates to send out, to send out the reminder, or to send out the email saying, hey, did you receive it? Did I win? So I remember one thing to know too with that, always remember habits always carry over in life. So for me, I still have the same follow-up process where I usually follow up with somebody either a week or two if I don't hear back from them. And I always put it somewhere where I can remember, as far as whether it's a calendar, whether it's a reminder. It's very important to establish these habits. These are habits that I established in college. And I would say that's probably why I was able to get all of my college education funded through scholarships, because I was one of those ruthless people that, if I didn't hear back from the scholarship, I made sure that they at least received it. So follow up 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks before the deadline, or 2 weeks after applying for the scholarship if it's before the deadline, or if it's within the 2 week time frame. And then if it's right around the deadline, try to follow up within 24 hours of the deadline. If they do not respond to your email, then please call them. They usually have a phone number. Call them, talk to somebody. This might take time, of course, but just call them, pick up the phone, say, hey, my name is so-and-so. I applied for the scholarship on this date. It was sent on that date. And did you receive it? First things first, did you receive it? That's the first thing you want to ask, that they at least receive it. And if they received it, great news. It means, you can kick back and relax a little bit. And then the next follow-up is really to see if you actually won the scholarship or not. And then if they do not respond to your phone call, leave them a voice message. Usually they have some sort of voice message system. And if you absolutely haven't heard back from them, send them a letter. Just a quick follow-up letter saying, hey, I sent my scholarship this date. I've sent an email on this date. I called on this date. And now I'm sending a final letter. Now, if they don't respond to the letter, then it might be this usually doesn't exist, but it might be a scam of a scholarship. I mean, if you follow up 3 times with them and they haven't responded to you, either they're very busy or it's just a scholarship that's not really all that legitimate. But at least you made effort. If anything, effort really matters when it comes to this stuff. Anytime you're pushing hard for something and you really, really want it that bad, you usually get it if you're taking the necessary steps to get it. So follow-up is very important. The waiting period is not the time to kick back and relax if you have not heard back from the scholarship committee yet. And then last step is, so you've found the scholarship, you've applied for the scholarship, you're going through the waiting period. Next step is the winning of the scholarship. This is the best phase. Very best phase. So this is either an email. Usually it's an email saying, hey, congratulations. Usually that's how the thing starts, or the subject starts. Congratulations, you won. Now, if you receive an email saying, thank you for applying, unfortunately, we could not, or we went through, usually it starts out, we received a lot of applications this year, and you unfortunately did not win the scholarship. That's how those letters, and that's not the time to be sad or to be, to be down or feel like you lost or feel like you did something wrong. What I would do in this phase, this is a very important phase here, is I would at least try to call and see why it is that you didn't win the scholarship. Maybe there's something you didn't do right. Maybe you didn't send in enough letters of recommendations. Maybe your essay wasn't strong enough. Because a lot of these scholarships, they're every year, so they're recurring every single year. So what you want to do is you want to find out why you didn't win the scholarship. You learn from your mistakes, or you learn, maybe it was just a very competitive pool of applicants. So you always want to know the reason why you didn't win, and then the following year you make sure you correct those mistakes. More than likely you win because it If anything, your application is coming in again now. They'll take you serious, somebody who's looking to further their education. So in this phase, if you do not win, please do the follow-up anyway and say, thank you for considering my application. I greatly appreciate it. If possible, I would like to know what are some of the reasons I didn't win the scholarship. Were there some things that I didn't do, things that I can improve upon? And then just keep up with them. And then when are you expecting, and this is big, when are you expecting for the applications to come out again? Because I would love to apply for it again. That just shows that you're somebody who's serious about the scholarship. So follow-up doesn't just extend, or follow-up doesn't just go to the waiting period. It even goes after you even found out about the results of the scholarship. But once you've won this, let's say you've won the scholarship, it's good to thank the organization. Make sure you thank them first and foremost. If you want, you can, if they send you an email, just respond back saying, thank you, I acknowledge receipt of this, first of all, because sometimes they're waiting for you to accept your award. Just because you've won it doesn't mean that you've accepted it and it's official. So imagine if you've won and you didn't respond because they didn't know that you were official yet. So thank the organization, whether it's a thank you note, a call. Usually they have some sort of reception or something that you can thank them at that point. But email is fine. Personal thank you card is also perfectly fine. What this allows you to do is it allows you to establish some sort of relationship, and this will show that you're someone who shows gratitude. It's very important to be a person of gratitude in life, because then they feel like, hey, okay, well, this person is actually appreciative. This might be a private foundation where they just started giving out scholarships. Like, wow, we actually giving out money to people who don't take it for granted. They're appreciative. And what this allows you to do is it gives you a head start on the following year. Let's say it's a recurrent scholarship. It puts you into that grandfather phase where they're like, oh, okay, he's coming back. Next year he applied again. Why not give him the scholarship? He's furthering his education. We've already invested in his education one time. Why not continuously, invest in his education? So with that being said, some scholarships do have a grandfather clause where once you win, you will win again and again and again. And I'll tell you, I applied for, so I was a member of the National Association of Black Accountants. My sophomore year, I became the vice president or external vice president of the UIUC chapter. And I started applying for the scholarships my freshman year. My freshman year was when I started applying. I won the national scholarship, the regional scholarship, and also the Chicago scholarship. Every single year after that, I won every single one of those scholarships. So I won the national, regional, and local scholarship for 4 consecutive years in a row because it was a grandfathered scholarship, meaning that they kept seeing my application. I was also a leader of the organization to this day. I'm a leader of the organization. I'm the second vice president of the Chicago chapter. Next year will be my 10-year anniversary as a member of NABA, and my 9th year as an executive board member. And I'm also the treasurer of the Central Region, or the Central Region chapter. So some scholarships, when they believe in you so much to the point, I literally told NABA CEO at the time that I plan to become a CEO of NABA, when it's all said and done one day. And when you tell somebody something like that, they take you serious. So for me, it's a path that I'm on. Not to say that you have to be heavily involved in the organization that you're applying for and all that good stuff, but some of these scholarships, and I'll tell you, the Chicago Urban League is a scholarship that I kept winning every single year because they ultimately seen an investment in my education. Now I teach entrepreneurship at the Chicago Urban League. So some of these scholarships, I actually still work with the organizations in some capacity when I'm helping them. Remember, you don't have to, but out of common courtesy, if anything, let's say your kids go to college, they might extend it to them because it's a grandfather policy. So some scholarships do have a grandfather clause. It's not, of course, they won't tell you like, hey, you'll win the scholarship every year, but it's kind of a given in a way. Until you become ineligible. So at some point, maybe it's only for freshmen through sophomore. So you might become ineligible, and then at that point, you won't win it. But ultimately, missing simple things such as thanking the organization, showing gratitude, attending the events or attending the the scholarship reception, these things can these things can prevent you from that whole grandfather policy, because remember, they're only looking for people who are serious, who are looking to win these scholarships and take their investment to the next level. And remember to always stay on top of it. Always, always. You apply for the scholarship, or you find a scholarship first step. You apply for it, and then there's a waiting period. And then once the waiting period is over with, hopefully, you end up winning a scholarship. So for me, I followed this 4-step method. I actually have an article on this on my website, which is jeffbadu.com, jeffbadu.com, where I sort of lay out the 4-step process on the website. So if you need a reference, or if you need a guide, something a little deeper than this show, you can feel free to check it out. And then at the bottom, towards the bottom of the page, there's a list of scholarships over there. Some of these scholarships, people just send them to me and say, hey, can you post it on your website, because we know you're somebody who advocates for scholarships. And so I'll usually just post it on the website. It stays up to date. So any scholarship that I'm aware of is usually posted directly on that website. So that's one resource. So if you need help finding a scholarship, this is something that you can go through. And just like saving for retirement, the key is to start this process early. Start it your junior year in high school, if possible, your sophomore year even. I applied for my first scholarship when I was a junior in high school. Can't think of the name, unfortunately, but it's a very popular scholarship that's given out to juniors in high school. Unfortunately, I did not win it because my ACT score didn't come out as high as I wanted it to be. I went to a CPS school called Uplift, and at the time was not the best school in the world, to say the least. But ultimately, if you follow these steps, I guarantee you at least you increase your chances of winning the scholarship. Whether you're a junior in high school, senior in high school, or even a grad student, this is an opportunity to win scholarships. It's very important to go out and find the money. Scholarships are everywhere. There's so many scholarships. There's an abundance of scholarships out there. There's more scholarships than there is, basically there's more money out there than it is the cost of education right now. It's just some people just don't know that that's actually true. And then the biggest of them all, and this is not really a scholarship, but the biggest source of aid is financial aid. So FAFSA. I was the guy that after celebrating New Year's, usually was at church. I was the guy that was one of the first people to submit a FAFSA application. It was so easy because all you had to do was using the same information, just updating it. It took about 5-10 minutes, and then went back to my celebration. So FAFSA, some of those awards are first come, first serve. So it's very important to stay on top of it. And thankfully, through all these efforts, through all these things that I was able to do, they say when you work hard, you get the results you want. I was able to leave college, leave grad school even, without a single penny in student loans. And remember, I started with student loans, but I didn't finish with student loans because I was able to win scholarships enough to fund my college education. And even some of the money I used to invest and bought my first stock, which was General Electric, when I was a junior in college. I invested pretty decent sum of money and was able to double it 2 years later. That's when General Electric at the time was doing good. Right now they're going through a lot of struggles. They're going through restructuring, new CEO, all that good stuff. So not the best investment in the world, but at the time I did so much research. My classes studied GE or General Electric so much to the point that I had to invest in it, and I knew that I would cash out. So I was able to invest in it, doubled the money 2 years later, bought my first condo. Not just with that money, of course, but it's just to demonstrate how some of these things can really take you further. So that's scholarships are mainly meant to fund your education, but it can also help you in other areas of life and help you live a sort of abundant lifestyle, even in college, because you have an abundant amount of resources when it comes to the scholarships. Now, one thing to note, we have we still have a few minutes left, so let me just say something really quick. If you cannot win scholarships or cannot win financial aid for whatever reason, student loans are not the worst thing in the world. Remember, what we're doing is we're investing in our education. If somebody's giving us a scholarship, it means that somebody else is willing to invest in our education, and we don't even have to pay them back. That's just out of their common courtesy. But when it's a student loan, somebody is investing in your education. Back in the day, they didn't have student loans. Back in the day, if you didn't have the money for school, you just didn't have it. You just didn't go to school. You had to pick up a blue-collar job. You had to, you had to make ends meet. You had to do something. You had to either come from a wealthy family. You had to really do something in order to truly go to college back in the day. So nowadays, they're offering student loans, which, of course, student loan debt is over $1 trillion right now. It's not the prettiest thing in the world. But at the same time, nobody can take away your education from you. Nobody can strip your college degree from you. So it is an investment, if anything. It's something that you're investing into, whether you're funding your undergrad, your grad school, nursing school, law school, all these. And these are usually at these law degrees, these doctorate or nursing degrees, these are high-paying jobs too. So it's not like you're going to graduate and have some low-paying job. These are some of the top highly compensated folks in the world today. I work with doctors that are making killings right now. I mean, they can probably pay off their student loans in a few years if they really wanted to. So student loans aren't the worst thing in the world. Of course, if you can win scholarships, go ahead and fund your education through that and or financial aid. But if your last resort is student loans, remember, the best ones are subsidized, meaning the government is covering your interest while you're in school until 6 months after graduation, or if they decide to extend it. So the government covers your interest or your payments. You don't necessarily have to make any payments towards the loan because it's subsidized. Subsidized means it's subsidized by the government. And then unsubsidized means that the interest starts accumulating as soon as you take out the loan, and you might have to make some payments towards that loan over time. So not the worst thing in the world. Unfortunately, it has put a lot of people in a big jam in America, but if you have a high-paying job, if you're a highly compensated individual, I don't think you'll have any issues when it comes to this. There are some people that are truly struggling from student loan debt. Well, always remember, nobody can take away your college degree, not even a student loan company. Even if they wanted to come after you, they can never take away that degree from you. And nobody can take away what you've learned in college, your education. And then after you've gone through your education, be sure to continue it. Me, I read about 30 books a year. I go through learnings, teachings. As a CPA, I have to go through 120 credit hours of education every 3 years. So imagine, basically, I'm a college student for the rest of my life. 120 credit hours, basically, every 3 years. I do about 40 every year. It's not like college, of course. These are just, online videos and courses and trainings and all that good stuff about CPA stuff. On top of that, I have a life and health license, and I have to go through about 24 hours of training and education every year, or every 2 years in the state of Illinois. So education never stops, no matter what. It continues beyond college or beyond formal education. As a matter of fact, I didn't really start learning until after college. I learned a lot in college, but I didn't really start learning like real life stuff until after college, such as personal finance, how to budget, how to build a budget, how to I did learn how to invest in stocks in college because I took a very deep finance course known as Fin 300, financial markets. So that's how I learned how to trade stocks, was through that class. But a lot of the things, for example, I learned how to do taxes from the internet or from YouTube. A lot of the education that you receive is essentially going to be after college, as you're working, as when you're on the job. That's when you learn a lot of the stuff. But a college degree is what gets you in. It's very important to have. It's very important to just something to have in your back pocket. As a CPA, you have to have at least a bachelor's degree. So for me to even do what I do today, I had to go through college. It's not like I had a choice. It's not like I could drop out. I would not be where I am today without it, literally, because you cannot be a CPA without some sort of formal college education. So if you do have to go the route of student loans, it's not the worst thing in the world. But if you can win scholarships and if you can follow this 4-step process, then why not? It's free money, basically. They're just throwing money at you at this point, you know. So that's essentially the segment that we have for today. Definitely thank you all. Have a few viewers here. We have my good old plumber, Joe the plumber. He said, "What's up, Jeff?" We have a few listeners on, but definitely thank you all for tuning in to WJT 98.3 FM, your voice and music, your station. My name is Chef Badu, and I look forward to continuously delivering you all some content. Thank you.